Peace be with you, brothers and sisters in Christ. Welcome to this series of Lenten meditations drawn from the writings of St. Thomas Aquinas and his work, Meditations for Lent. Here is the meditation for today from St. Aquinas. Christ is truly our Redeemer. You were redeemed with the precious blood of Christ, as of a lamb unspotted and undefiled. By the sin of our first parents, the whole human race was alienated from God, as is taught in the second chapter of the Epistle to the Ephesians. It was not from God's power that we were thereby cut off, but from the sight of God's face to which his children and his servants are admitted. Then again, we descended beneath the usurped power of the devil. Man had consented to the devil's will, and, thereby, had made himself subject to the devil. Subject, that is to say, as far as lay in man's power, for since he was not his own property, but the property of another, he could not really give himself away to the devil. By his passion, then, Christ did two things. He freed us from the power of the enemy, conquering him by virtues which were the very contraries to the vices by which he had conquered man, by humility, namely, by obedience, and by the austerity of suffering that was in direct opposition to the enjoyment of forbidden food. Furthermore, by making satisfaction for the sin committed, Christ joined man with God and made him the child and servant of God. This emancipation had about it two things that make it a kind of buying. Christ is said to have bought us back, or to have redeemed us, inasmuch as he snatched us from the power of the devil. As a king is said, by hard-fought battles, to redeem his kingdom that the enemy has occupied. Christ is again said to have redeemed us, inasmuch as he placated God for us, paying, as it were, the price of his satisfaction on our behalf, that we might be freed both from the penalty and from the sin. This price, his precious blood, he had paid that he might make satisfaction for us, not to the devil, but to God. Again, by the victory that his passion was, he took us away from the devil. The devil had indeed had dominion over us, but unjustly, since what power he had was usurped. Nevertheless, it was but just that we should fall under his yoke, seeing that it was by him we were overcome. That is why it was necessary that the devil should be overcome by the very contrary of the forces by which he had himself overcome. For he had not overcome by violence, but by lying persuasion to sin. Okay, that is the meditation for today. Let's go over some reflections. Reflecting on the inverse of God's will reveals the nature of Satan's will, a spirit of rebellion and isolation from our all-loving Creator, rooted in deceitful pride that detaches us from the goodness in favor of purely selfish pursuits. It was into this dark dominion that humanity fell, ensnared by the enemy's influence, when our first parents, through their disobedience in the garden, severed our original union with God. In profound contrast, Christ embodies the virtues that directly oppose those of the adversary: humility before the Father, and selfless sacrifice on our behalf. Through his redemptive act, he restores our path to reunion with the Father, achieved by faith in God's only begotten Son. Peace be with you. See you tomorrow for the next meditation.